I would like to give my wife a big kiss.
Thank you.
I grew up in Chongqing, which is located in the Jilin province in China. My grandfather, 3 older brothers, and I lived on the upstairs floor of a private clinic my grandfather opened himself. I remember always being at my brother's side growing up and never having to worry about many things because our family had a good economic status. After I graduated from college, the government sent myself and other people with a higher social status to the countryside for reformation. At that time, I got married to one of my classmates who went to college with me. My comrades in arms and I only had each other during the Cultural Revolution. My husband at the time and I began to feel that we couldn't fit in each other's lives anymore. Nothing felt comfortable because the both of us had different hierarchical backgrounds. I was born into a family of intellectuals, doctors, and Christians. His family consisted of poor farmers. My family became capitalist pawns and were a part of the 5 black categories during that time. People with the same background as us were all being discriminated against and oppressed in both society and family. It made us feel like there was no space for us to survive. After all of the universities reopened after the revolution, I became an English teacher at the Liaoning Institution of Architecture and Engineering in 1985. After that, a new marriage law was passed, and I decided to get rid of the life and marriage that could not survive anymore, and I divorced my husband.
After the usual childhood diseases, pneumonia, measles, etc., I moved on into elementary and secondary school, graduating finally from high school at Crawford County Community High School in Arma. Well, I went into the Navy Naval Aviation Training Program to become a Navy pilot in World War II. And that was years 1943 to 1945, when I was in the regular Navy, flying combat qualified aircraft, such as dive bombers and fighter bombers. As I entered college on the GI Bill, I became a teacher of English grammar, literature in a high school in Michigan. And I taught there for about 3 years. Then I went back to graduate school because in the teaching profession you need a graduate degree to make any progress up the elevator. After finishing that degree, a master's degree in English and one in education, actually 2 master's degrees, I went back to Michigan to continue teaching at the same high school until I had an opportunity to go to Germany as an exchange teacher on the Fulbright program.
A friend of mine who was also a staff member from the retiring department in Jinan University told me that I could search for a romantic partner online on a website called Chinese Lovelinks. I decided that I wanted to give it a shot and went onto the website using my computer. I decided to connect with Bill by sending him a message, and he eventually responded. After that, we began to talk to each other gradually. Retired English teachers like myself are often given the chance to be sent abroad as visiting scholars in other countries. I really wanted to be sent as one like many other retired scholars I know, but I didn't get selected. I decided to find a way out myself. I wanted to know what the rest of the world looked like because I had lived in China for almost 70 years. I have heard many people say that the world was big and wonderful, and I thought to myself, could it really be that wonderful? My decision was to discover that on my own.
We were smart enough, even though we did not pretend to be professional, to be able to send pictures as well as text back and forth. I wrote some poetry. She responded. I wrote some other language. She responded. I had come halfway around the world to meet this woman face to face, but she did not answer her telephone. The reason she didn't answer her phone was that she had neglected to pay the phone bill.
Since we had been talking a lot through email and saw each other's pictures, the first time we met each other face to face was like seeing an old friend. I took one look at him and it didn't feel strange at all.
The thing I liked most about her, in one word, was spontaneity. She was a spontaneously warm and welcoming person. We came home and we corresponded back and forth for a long time. And then in January 2013, she came to Kansas. She had 90 days to make up her mind about marrying me or not. She waited until the 89th day to make up her mind.
After Bill left, a realization came to me. He was the one. Since we're both in our old age, we don't like the younger generations because they try to find love immaturely. But as a Chinese saying implies, see common points while reserving difference. In a relationship, you just have to compromise. Bill and I got married on April 19th, 2013 in a church in Pittsburg, Kansas. During my first marriage, I didn't have a wedding gown. I can remember my friend telling me, "Yanju, you must wear a gown for this time." That same friend delivered me a gown from Guangzhou just for my wedding. I wore that gown and Bill and I got married in a church with a beautiful ceremony. In this moment, I felt very special.
Amen. You may kiss the bride. If you'll face the congregation, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce Mr. and Mrs. William Salner.
People's opinions, I don't care about it. It's not other people's business. All of my siblings feel like I have a better life now than I ever did when I was younger.
Opening the doors to the puppet shed. I made so many puppets they began to crowd me out of my own house, so I built a shed for them. Sometimes I call it my house of shrunken heads, as Ronald Reagan as a young man, and Ted Kennedy, another well-known rascal from the establishment in Washington, D.C. And, of course, some of my old friends, like Jimmy Carter, when he first ran for the White House. I will get around to making Donald Trump in due course. And I will make him of wood, for certain.
Gorsuch an originalist?
They come in, they sit, they drink, they have their conversations, and nothing out of the ordinary.
But we gather and talk about the events of the day and gossip a bit and joke and enjoy each other's company. It's a social hour.
I enjoy him. I get a kick out of him. We actually interact quite a bit with me being the waitress for them for over a year. And it's just a nice group of guys. I appreciate them.
Bill and I sing, dance, do Tai Chi, massage each other, and plant vegetables and flowers in our garden. Sometimes we even use some of our vegetables to cook food.
He comes in, he does do a lot of gardening, and he does bring us extras sometimes, so he's just a really all-around, really great guy.
I'm very proud of her. I think she is a wonderful coach. She's very serious about it. Many people think Tai Chi is just waving your hands, but there are very rigid and strict rules for the placement of feet and fingers and arms and legs.
She teaches that Tai Chi class a couple times a week, and like I say, I've been in the class a couple times. It's a stringent, it's a hard discipline, and but I think it'd be a great exercise if somebody really wanted to get into Tai Chi. It's demanding.
Bill is very talented. He can do everything. Sing, play music, everything. He knows a lot of different languages too, like English, German, French, some Chinese, and even some Spanish. He also reads a lot, book by book. Bill often borrows books from different libraries back and forth, like a bookworm. He's down to earth and always acts by what he believes. A lot of people like to put on a mask when they hang out with others, but he communicates with everyone wholeheartedly in a way that makes them feel comfortable.
We are both strong-minded, and sometimes we butt heads, but we are both committed to make this marriage work.
Both of us are in good health, physically and mentally, and both of us are down to earth. We're not chasing after any kind of luxurious lifestyle.
She never does her own dishes. She waits for me to do the dishes.
I don't like that he doesn't wash his hands before eating a meal. He always grabs the food and puts it straight to his mouth, even after he's been outside.
We learn to live with differences. We must, as a people, not just the two of us, we must all learn to live with differences, because that's the way it is.
I stick to my Chinese roots. Bill isn't used to it, but he's got a lot to say since he's a direct man. Unlike him, the Chinese remain unspoken. We do before we say, whereas Americans say something before they do it. The Chinese are prepared for you whether you need it or not. Americans will ask if you want it first. If you don't want it, they don't provide anything for you.
Well, no, they're just great folks. Chen's interesting. You know, I'm always interested in different cultures, and she's, you know, being from China, she's very Chinese, although she's very comfortable here, I'm sure.
Culturally, it mainly refers to language problems, because my Chinese is very thin, very, very thin.
As far as little things go, we just compromise. Sometimes we get into little arguments, but it's not a big deal. For example, the first time I came here, we had a small argument about how Bill's furniture was rearranged. I wanted to move some of the tables away because it'd give us more space to do other things. He disagreed with it and insisted on keeping the big table in the middle of our dining room. He said, "This is my room." I replied, "This is my home as well. I'd like to put it out of the way."
Her culture, and I often ask her about things about her home and about the way she lived there and the things she's seen in her life. Of course, she was born in like 1960, so I guess I could figure out her age. But you know, Mao Zedong was in power in China when she was growing up, and I'm sure she's seen a lot of things that would curl our hair.
Her Civil War is only about since 1949. And much of it she lived through as a child. And my experience with Civil War is practically nil, except what I've read and the movies I've seen. But hers was lived, and that is a big, big difference between us.
I didn't ever think I would find someone like Bill. It was our destiny. And it's things like these that you can never foresee.
We have people doing things today which they would never have done or never been allowed to do when I was a young man. As in electricity, negative poles attract positive poles. Positive poles attract negative poles. And I think we have that kind of relationship which pulls us together, that and a determination to make it work.
When I look back, there was not many people in the college I used to work at that had an international marriage because most of them were conservative. They would rather have lived by themselves all alone than finding a foreigner to get married with. I get to look on the outside of it because, think about it, a woman in her 70s is put into a wedding gown again. A lot of the students from the university I used to teach at approached me and said to me admiringly, "Chen, you made the best step of your life."
To be honest, there have been times when I wondered whether we could hang it out together. But we've been together for 4 years now, and I see no reason why we cannot continue indefinitely.